Mary Katharine Ham is a Fox News contributor. She is the host of Getting Hammered. And normally, you can find her on X at MKHammer. It's hard not to say without laughing, Mary Katharine.
That's how it's designed.
Do you drink on Getting Hammered?
Oh, yes. About quarterly, we do a taste test episode, which is how we euphemistically call Getting Hammered while taping Getting Hammered. Like, you got to try all the canned cocktails for summer. You got to try all the fall beers for fall. This is the service that we provide.
Thank you. We appreciate your service.
No
I appreciate you also doing this today. Appears like from a hotel room. I think it could be your room. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a guest room. I had to take my kids to camp, so I'm hanging out with the grandparents, dropping the kids off at camp.
Oh, awesome. Thank you for joining us. Whenever you see a bed in the background, you're like, somebody's in a hotel or outside their normal situation today. Hey, I was just talking about Stephen Colbert's cancellation, and I was away on vacation, Mary Katharine, but over the past week, it really became a cause celeb. I mean, it became this thing, at the likes of New York Times and CNN, of a First Amendment cause. This is executive pressure. This is Donald Trump. He is crushing the ability of people to make fun of him, when in reality, what seems clear to everyone with any objective eye is you stopped entertaining people. You're not making fun because it's not fun, and you have no audience.
Yeah, but it's so embarrassing, actually. Like, this guy, Colbert, who thinks he's, like, leading the major culture in this country, in fact, finds, as you know, that he's a micro-niche guy. Like, you don't have a mass majority of people who want to watch you because this is the situation you've created. But having created that situation, he then declares that he is entitled to other people's money to make his media dreams happen. No, that's not how it works. That shouldn't be how it works for NPR or PBS or for Colbert. It's not a First Amendment issue. And by the way, if in fact it's so hard to make fun of the president in this country, then perhaps Comedy Central wouldn't have like a 14 times the size of Colbert's deal that it was given, where they happily make fun of everybody. But the way they make fun of everybody makes it funny. So people enjoy the product and people want to pay for the product. This is the difference. So I think Colbert's just living in a universe of his own creation. They also bubbleize themselves in entertainment so much that they don't even know that what they're doing is not funny. Like, everyone around them is like, rah, rah. His whole writer's room is like, oh, we're doing great. You give us our jobs. I think these jokes are fantastic. Meanwhile, as you noted, on TikTok or Reels on Instagram, your neighbors are writing better jokes than this writer's room on a regular basis.
Oh, when you said Comedy Central, you're talking about South Park? Did you say
Yes.
South Park? That you're right. Like last week, South Park signed multi-$100-million deal. And I think the first episode of the new season was making fun of Donald Trump.
Went
right?
so hard,
and,
yes.
I mean, so hard at Trump, which illustrates the whole point against the guys the likes of Brian Stelter. Mary Katharine, for people that are not in media, this may seem like, navel gazing or belly aching, but I don't think it is, because it tells you something about the way information has been fed to us probably over the last half a century. Yeah. I saw this at ESPN. People that had points of view, even in sports, that were micro niche, represented very, very, very few people, but were celebrated in the right places. And those right places became defined by, for a while, on X, before Elon bought it, and in blogs that covered sports, and this happens in news as well, or major publications like The New Yorker, made it seem like these people were relevant, made it seem like these people were talented. And they made really big salaries, really big for a long time, for really, really, yes, small audiences, but also radical points of view. And you were fed this. We all were fed this stuff. And those people made a ton of money for a long time doing it. And I don't know what that says, about the people running the companies, that they're all followers and they see who for a moment was getting likes on Twitter, then before X, or they're ideologues and they believe it as well, or they're just really, really bad at business and entrepreneurship and not seeing what resonates with an audience.
I think it's a combo, and I think they kept walking themselves out the plank further and further with their viewpoints. And you're right, it did influence the way that we talked as a culture, because at the beginning of this trip, maybe 30 years ago, these figures were the monoculture. They were our shared culture, whether we liked it or not. And we got other options as we went, but they kept taking their message further and further left, more and more radical. And by the time we got to like men and women's sports, people were so cowed, assuming everyone in the monoculture, which has at this point has divided into 1,000 pieces, don't agree with their point of view that maybe girls should play against girls. They're afraid to talk about it. One of the things that when Guy Benson and I wrote 10 years ago now, we wrote End of Discussion, which was about cancel culture before cancel culture had a name. One of the things we did was to tell people in each chapter about polling, public polling on important issues where they think, because of the culture, that they're the weirdos, but they're not the weirdos when it comes to abortion or it comes to men and women's sports. These are areas where the American people are the mainstream, but they have been told for 25 years that they are the problem and they are the weirdos and they are the outliers. And in fact, I think, ironically, the disappearance of the monoculture means that the proper monoculture actually has resonance now, which is us. Like, we're making the decisions, and Donald Trump is the vehicle for that in many cases.
We're the
Sorry,
monoculture.
Colbert.
I don't like that. I don't like monoculture. But we are the majority. That's
the majority culture is what I mean,
majority.
right? Like the shared values
Yeah.
end up being default patriotism, sanity, all the things that we've looked for, like a valuing of faith and family. Those are our shared culture.
Right.
And what got presented as our shared culture for a long time was way far off from what actually was.
Okay, well, that leads questions about, like, for example, what's going to happen in New York City. So Zohran Mamdani is the Democratic candidate for mayor, and he has said things like he doesn't believe in private property, or he thinks that we should consider abolishing private property. The New York Post says, inside Zohran Mamdani's posh, multi-day Uganda wedding, complete with phone jamming systems and armed guards. So Mamdani has this huge blowout. It's a little bit like Gavin Newsom eating at the French Laundry, right, while everyone else has to be shut down for COVID. He seems to, and again, it comes as no surprise. It's always the case with socialists. It's for you, not for him. Socialism for thee, but not for me. And I don't know. I don't know if New York will overlook this hypocrisy, embrace this radicalism, recognize this as radical, you know? Or is New York's monoculture or majority culture this, Zohran Mamdani?
Yeah. Look, he's a rich kid socialist, like most socialists are. And certainly the ones who want to rule over other people, because then they get to remain rich while they make the rest of us poor. That's what they're after. He is a native of Uganda. He goes back to get married. I believe they eloped earlier this year, but they had a celebration. They're in Uganda, which, again, let's live by our values here. Uganda is one of the lowest per capita GDP countries in the world, like 160 of 180. And he's out here with a millions of dollar compound, shut off from regular people, guarded by special forces and his own private security, so that they can just lavish themselves for 3 days at a wedding ceremony. He's not doing community service projects in Uganda. He's not reaching out to regular people. I didn't see any photo ops doing that stuff. By the way, he's also off the trail during the middle of a campaign for 2 weeks to be there. He ain't flying back immediately after this wedding, which I think is very strange from a strategic point of view. But yeah, look, rich kid socialists are all about hypocrisy. It's all about they know best because they were raised with all the money and all the privilege, and they're not going to check that privilege. What they're going to do is keep that privilege and make sure that you can have none. And I don't wish for that for New York. I wish for better for them. Of course, the menu of options they have is somewhat limited. I think I'd be an Adams gal if I were there, but it's tough. It's tough. And I think when it comes to a vibes election, the young guy with the interesting videos who can smile and talk on camera is going to end up doing pretty well, despite all his hypocrisy.
I don't know. I think I still have some retention of hope in New York City that even New York will reject this radicalism. I can't imagine this guy winning mayor. Mary Katharine, what do you think's going on with young men? I want you to look at this chart that we have here. It's the share, and we've talked about this from time to time, but this is a brand new set of polling coming out from the Financial Times. It's the share of young men who are neither in education or work. They're not in education. They're not looking for a job. They don't have a job. And it's not just the United States. But in the United States, the number of men who fit that category has risen to, I believe it's about, and these are 20 to 24-year-olds, by the way, 10%, which is a steep climb from the 1980s. In the UK, it's closer to 15%. In Canada, it's about like the U.S. In France, it's over 10% of young men, 20 to 24, show no, ability or interest to get on a productive path of work, look for work, or in education.
Yeah. This is very foreboding. I think societies with disengaged young male populations who don't put their time into productive activities historically have not done well. But here's what you have to do. You have to value men. You have to show them a path as a society. You have to value that path and say that the work you are doing is important to us. And then you have to like not hate men or work, right? But our society, and certainly the left that has become this sort of fake majority culture projected on everyone, doesn't value the special things that men bring to the table, right? What they largely wish, and this is in the healthcare sector, in the education sector, certainly in academia, the wish is that men, by and large, should take on more feminine characteristics. They should be more interested in dialogue. They should be more interested in their feelings. They should be more interested in brokering peace wherever they go. Less interested in aggression, less interested in sex. These are what the culture demands. And I think when you are a young man who is driven by wanting to be a man, you don't have a path laid out for you unless you have a really good father and really good mentors who are there to teach it to you, because it is not the cultural default anymore. And I would recommend to folks, if you haven't read it, Of Boys and Men by Richard Reeves, which has a lot of this information in it about how we failed young men. And what's important about it too is that if your liberal neighbors come to you and want to discuss this ever, it's written by a Brookings Institution guy, so they can't sort of write it off easily. He has a couple sons, and he was like, look, I'm a liberal, but let's look at the universe that we are creating for young men and how it is not conducive to any of the things that make them special and make them helpful and make them first responders and make them guys who repair your power lines in a crisis situation. Those things are valuable. We need those things on the front lines. But if we continue to denigrate them, we will not have them.
I go back and forth, Mary Katharine. I think sometimes in that I don't have any children in this age range, but they're teenagers. Yeah. And they're headed that way. And I look at that social cohort, and I sometimes actually feel more hopeful. And it could be a product of where I live, or in the environment that I'm in. But I see young men who are not fitting this stereotype a lot, meaning they value being strong. They are, focused on faith and family. And they are headed down a path of the kind of men that we need in society. So I do think there's some hope for some of these young guys, but the way you described some things does give me concern. And it's twofold. Number one, and I think Two-A-Days Dan, my producer, is going to hate when I say this, because we had a debate about this about a week and a half ago. And I'm not putting this too much on therapy culture, but the idea that you should always be worried about your feelings and what's wrong, you should be internally focused, and that kind of thing, I think can be debilitating. Others think it becomes enabling, that it helps you. But I think that there is a push to soften men to a degree that you become listless or stuck. And I think that there's also a secondary problem, and this is coming more out of primarily, barstool conservative type culture, and that is perpetual adolescence, perpetual party, drink, and I love sports, but just be stuck in that college party phase for so long in your life. That's what I worry about a lot of those young men, that you end up at 26, 27. And it's like, hey man, at some point it's time to get out there and be a productive man.
Yeah, I actually wrote about a little bit about this for National Review this month in the print magazine, because I was writing about going over the Chesapeake Bay Bridge with my children, which scares me because I'm just not good at those big curvy bridges and it freaks me out. And I talked about, there's an option where you can hire a person to drive over this bridge for you. But as a metaphor for life, I don't think that's a helpful thing to do. I appreciate the hustle.
Wait. I've never heard of such a thing. Yeah. How do you hire someone to drive over the bridge for you?
Yes. So capitalism is amazing, and that's a great option for some. It's not a good option for me. So what I did is I did exposure therapy basically in front of my 4 children. Was like, mom's gonna pretend she's not scared of this bridge, and she's gonna make it to the other side where there's a birthday party that we're gonna have a nice time on. But there's a great scene in a series on HBO called Station 11 where there's this big apocalypse, and these 2 adult men end up having to take care of a little girl whose life is falling apart. And they say, well, what are we going to do? And one brother says, we're adults. We're going to pretend we're not scared. And that is a thing that I think many people have lost sight of. Many adults lost sight of, especially during COVID, that it is your job to stand in the breach between your children and you. I've been through things in life where I had to do that for my children. And it makes you stronger, and it is a gift to them that they don't have to process what you're going through. So to the extent that you use therapy to make sure you're not using your children as an outlet for this kind of thing, great. But I think there are pretty extensive studies that cognitive behavioral therapy, where you're going through with things, where you're doing life, even when it's hard, are better than too much ruminating. Because if you're thinking about your emotional state while you're going over the bridge, you might not make it over the bridge. You're going to freak out and have to hire somebody. But I think it's better for me and my kids to model, we made it to the other side of the bridge and everything was fine.
But I love the word you just chose to use, because there's studies on this. Like, if you look, and I can't quote the study, but I know I've seen stuff about this. Rumination is part of leading to unhappiness, like staying and focusing and revisiting and talking about and thinking about over and over all of these negativities or whatever keeps you in that place. It doesn't move you beyond. And rumination is the source of your unhappiness, where action and forward progress and productivity, that is the path to happiness. And I don't know, I think it's a little bit the opposite of what we're teaching everyone. And again, I'm not indicting all therapy, but I do think there is this thing, like one foot in front of the other.
No, I think this is, so you know this about me, and many of your listeners probably do, but 10 years ago, my husband died in a cycling accident. I was 7 months pregnant. I had a 2-year-old at home. And obviously this is like, hopefully about as bad as it gets, right, in life. And since then, I have made friends with many a widow who get in touch with me, or people who are going through crises in their own life, whose friends recommend them to me, and I stay in touch with them. And one of the things I say, Will, to those folks is, I know it sounds trite, but you have to literally put one foot in front of the other. And it doesn't mean you ignore what happened to you. And it doesn't mean that you move on immediately. But it does mean that you eat some protein and you go out and walk around the block, if that's what you can do that day. That you make your kids breakfast and you put together a couple of hours of success such that you can, even when things are really dark. And that not doing those things isn't going to protect you from the pain. It really won't. The pain will still be there, no matter whether you're moving or not. And so that is advice I give to people who are in crisis, because I think putting one foot, again, almost literally in front of the other, is how you get through life, because you're still moving. You're still with us.
Yeah. I just watched. Have you watched Severance, Mary Katharine, on Apple TV?
Yes, I watched the first season. I haven't caught up.
Yeah.
You can spoil it. It's okay. I'll be fine.
Well, you know this already, and it's not a spoiler to say it's about separating yourself from your trauma. It's interesting. Yes. It's a TV show that, in a way, addresses the way that we've tried to. It's like you create 2 different versions of yourself, right? The version that goes to work and the version that's home. And the version that's at work doesn't know about all the trauma in your personal life. It just goes to work and does that. But the one at home is stuck in that trauma stage. It's stuck dealing with all of that stuff. And I think in a way, it highlights, you need that productivity to move beyond it. You need to be a fully integrated person that moves forward.
Yes.
And I don't know if the word is beyond, to your point. And thank you for sharing with everyone if they don't know your story. It doesn't mean beyond, but it means not stuck in that one place for the rest of your life.
Yep, and you have decisions to make when you're at that place in your life, and I think, again, to your point about men, the other thing that our society has lost sight of is that doing really difficult things and making it through is actually what life is. There is no option. There's no easy option, right? But people get this idea that just by staying where they are, by not taking chances, by not doing things that are tough, and I think we send this message to children too often, you can just sit back, you don't have to do the challenging thing, that somehow life will be easier. In fact, it makes it harder because you get less practice doing hard things and getting through them. And so I think we need to change the way we message that as well. Because for men, like, becoming a man is very difficult. Being a father is difficult. Rising to the occasion and making sure that you're protecting others and providing for them is very difficult stuff that requires bravery and hard work. But if we don't encourage being brave and doing hard work, you'll get less of it.
All right. Lastly, I wanted to talk about this story with you. It's interesting. Elon Musk has said there's zero national media coverage of this story, which sometimes I'm like, don't be reactionary, Will. Don't respond to the provocation. But I mean, I think it is a story worth looking at. This is out of Cincinnati, Ohio, and I'll play the video with no sound because the sound doesn't help for anyone listening on podcast or terrestrial radio. But it looks like a couple. It's at least two people in Cincinnati, Ohio, who are jumped by a mob of it looks like 7-8 people. They're all attacking these people at the same time. The man is being stomped on when he's down. He's in that woozy, knocked out stage, so he can't get up. And then he's being kicked in the head and stomped over and over. He's white. Everyone beating on him is black.
Right.
Seems to be part of the story. Then I don't know if this woman is with him or not, but then she gets just knocked out cold in this video. Yeah. I think her head hits the pavement. It's awful. Here is some of the response, Mary Katharine. Vivek Ramaswamy, who's running for governor of Ohio, says reckless violence has no place in Ohio. Restoring law and order on our streets shouldn't be a partisan issue. I invite Amy McIntyre and others, Democratic leaders in our state, to join us in condemning this kind of violence and supporting stronger law enforcement in our cities. And then Bernie Moreno, the senator from Ohio, says the mayor of Cincinnati, who has an opinion on lots of irrelevant topics, has not issued a statement, let alone a condemnation of this heinous attack. Instead of dreaming about higher office, which will never happen, he should be ensuring his residents are safe. I'll say this, Mary Katharine, a couple of things. So I'm hesitant sometimes when I see these videos because I actually feel like I see these videos somewhat often is like X algorithm feeding me these videos, right? And not feeding me other kinds of videos. I do wonder about that. That being said, I do happen to see these videos a lot and I don't see the reverse. And I think there is an audience of, hey, here's a massive group of white people beating this black person up. I actually think that would be a huge national story that everyone would be talking about. And yet these come and these go at some level of frequency. It's not talked about. And this is horrific, what you just saw in Cincinnati. Yeah.
Look, I think you're right. If it were reversed, it would be a national story. Not every single story has to be a national story. That is something I think you're right that we should exercise caution about. However, this is like the Cincinnati Jazz Festival, right? This is a thing that brings people to the city, that they want to highlight, that presumably they want to make money hosting people at. And if you are not protecting people in those environments, your city will become less attractive for anyone to visit, period. You would think a mayor might have an opinion about that. But what lefties often want to do, and I don't know the particular views of the mayor of Cincinnati, but in general, what people in left-leaning major metropolitan cities do is that they try to ignore that these things ever happen and just pretend so that nobody will worry about it. People worry about it. Again, we go back to the culture, which is micro-niched at this point. People in Cincinnati are going to see this video. You're not tricking them that this is happening in their streets. You're not tricking them that people could have died at the Cincinnati Jazz Festival. And that is not what they want for their city. They don't want a city that has higher than average violent crime, but that's what they have. So if your mayor is ignoring that and doing nothing about it, and the people who perpetrated it are not getting the message that this will be very bad, if you try things like this, you will get more of it in the future. It's all about what you incentivize in these situations. And the governance of American large cities seems bent on creating more, not fewer problems for their citizens all the time.
And just start with acknowledging the problem. You have to acknowledge the problem in order to solve the problem. And culturally, I don't know what it is about the gang mob attack. Like, we tie this into the man story, but like, you know, you get in a fight, you get in a fight. How about one-on-one? You know, this idea that you're mobbed by a pack of people who then kick you and hit you when you're down. To me, I mean, that is cowardice. That is you're not tough. You're not a man. You're something else. And this idea that whatever it is, I don't know, 10, 7, 8, 9, 12 people attacking one or two, it's something rotten. Not just in the streets, something rotten.
I think you make a good point, Will, that like if this were a fist fight between two dudes, like no one's ever going to hear about that. No one's going to care about that video aside from, you know, rating it on YouTube or whatever. It's not going to be a national story. And by the way, there were women involved in this too. I believe several women went after the woman who got knocked out here. But when it is a mob, yes, these people are defenseless. After hit one and you got 9 people, congratulations. You've overcome them. It is cowardice. It is a different kind of animal. And I think it shows that kind of fight is a different form of public violence that scares people in a different way because the animal itself is the mob. The mob has a different like psychology than just a fist fight.
Yes. And I don't know, by the way, I don't know what that means in criminal charges. Like, is that more than assault? Like when you have a mob of people doing that, at some point it becomes more than simple assault. It becomes, when you're stomping on a guy's head when he's down, I don't know. I mean, at some point, I don't know what aggravated assault, attempted murder. It's becoming possibly something else with every additional kick, every additional hit. Okay, Mary Katharine Ham, check her out on Getting Hammered, and what is it? Normally, right, with Carol Markowitz. Normally, yeah, that's right. Check her out at those programs. We always love having her on. Mary Katharine, thanks for giving us so much time.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.